Hello and a very warm welcome to our latest Backpage video, which comes from here at Central Quay on a weekend where the Scottish top flight returns to action after the international break. And I'm joined by Gordon Waddell, and today's Backpage, Gordon, it declares that the Gers war is over, but is it?
I suspect that's maybe optimistic on somebody's part. I'm not entirely sure how. I certainly think that the war has changed, or that there's the tide has turned, whatever you want to call it. But I think that the Laxey partners' declaration of support for the current board is significant. How significant we'll really only find out again at the AGM, I think. But I think that he's explained in there why they believe that the board, which has been put in place so far, has given him some reassurance that the club are going in the right direction. My argument against that is that it's who's appointed the board and the power that still lies behind the boardroom, in as much as the Easdales are obviously still exercising some control, because, let's face it, when they started from disarray, when they only had two left on the board, and started to build up there, they are obviously behind these appointments. And whilst on the surface guys like Graham Wallace are very, very solid appointments in terms of their corporate governance and in terms of the club being run well, I don't think anybody disputes that. That there's also an element of that the power behind the club still rests with the guys who have appointed them, if you know what I mean. So I think that there's still a way to go, and I don't think the fans are reassured. I still don't think the fans trust the people who are behind their club. I don't know. I think there it has been politics now in the Rangers boardroom for a year, and I think that it's going to be. It will all play out on December the 19th at the AGM. I now think though that if I was a betting man, which I'm not, but I would certainly I would be taking a little punt on the current board, kind of overcoming the requisitioners. And it does make you wonder. Actually, you look back and you think back to when Jim McCall and Paul Murray were trying to instigate an EGM, when the Rangers board was in total disarray, when they only had two people on it. If they had pushed through with that EGM instead of backing down from it, then they would have the power at the club by now, because everybody would have voted for them then. But they allowed them time to gather, and the Easdales and Brian Stockbridge have gathered. They've recovered well. They've appointed good people to their board, and now all of a sudden the power is swaying back towards them. So I think that they'll be regretting, and they may regret for the rest of their days, not pushing through with that EGM.
You've spoken at length in your Sunday Mail column in recent months about the subject of fan ownership, about fans' position within the Scottish game.
Yep.
The Rangers fans are not very happy at the moment with the way this is going. Is the ship sailed for them? Have they got no chance of really gaining a foothold in terms of power within their club now?
I felt they had their chance, and they let it slip through their fingers for various reasons. It's very difficult. You're talking about a major institution here and major money, and it's not easy. A lot of fan ownership has been born out of crises, at other clubs. If you look at Dunfermline, if you look at the way that Hearts are heading, but they're not over the fence yet. But a lot of fan ownership has come around through necessity. But the Rangers fans weren't completely together. They weren't unified in what they wanted to see for their club or wanted to achieve for their club, and they weren't particularly organised about how they were ever going to go about it. I think that there's good intention from some of them, and I think that they might regret, that again, not kind of trying to force through their own version of it at some point. But again, financially, it would have been very difficult for them. But the opportunity may have been there if they had grasped it. But I think they can still have a big involvement. We'll see on December the 19th. As a fan group, they still own 13% of the shares or whatever. And that could have a significant sway on how the board's comprised and who wins power. So they'll still have a big say if they can stay together.
You mentioned Hearts just a moment ago, and as it's revealed in the back page today, they remain in death row, so to speak. They're hanging in there another week now.
Yeah, I think that was a bitter blow to them. I think they really wanted to get this meeting out of the way. But as we've discovered over the years with Hearts, anything that happens in Lithuania, is one of these things that you simply can't take at face value. They're relying on organisations that have been unreliable for them for years. So to suddenly think that this is some kind of surprise that they move the goalposts yet again, they shouldn't be taken aback by it. But again, they've got very good people within their organisation, within the foundation of Hearts. They've got the best administrator in the business, and Brian Jackson looking after them in terms of seeing through a CVA or seeing through some kind of solution for them. So I would still be optimistic for them that they would get over that final hurdle at some point next week. But again, do you trust the Lithuanians? No.
And just finally, across the city, a new era begins at Easter Road, one that a lot of people who've watched the way that Terry Butcher has put a team together in the Highlands are rightly excited about the way that things could be going for Hibs. But how quickly do we expect to see results there?
It's hard, I mean, I think what Terry and Maurice Malpass bring with them is a set of values, a set of standards that they will apply to the team, and woe betide anybody in the dressing room who doesn't live up to them. Speak to Owen Tudor-Jones, and he was talking about, he says so far the Hibs players have only seen the good Terry Butcher, because it's all been sweetness and light, and he's trying to get everybody on side and everybody to believe in his values. He says, but he says, as soon as if a game comes and anybody drops an inch below the bar that he's set for them, then they will find things flying about their ears in no time. And he was perfectly serious about it, so it wasn't that wasn't a metaphor for anything. It was a literal thing. But whether it's teacups or doors or whatever, but he's I genuinely think that he will produce something from what he's got, but I think it will take him at least the rest of the season, maybe the next 2 transfer windows, to get something resembling what he wants from that team. Because I still think when you look at that Hibs team, and he saw it himself when Inverness played them last week and he was in the stand, there are pretty serious shortcomings in the team. But I think first and foremost, if he changes their attitude and changes their organisation and kind of loses that doomed feel about them, then they'll get an instant impact. I don't think it'll last long enough for them to be kind of challenging up top 3, 4. I mean, if they get into the top 6, and they're not far away from that, let's face it, then I think that would be his achievement for the season.
Don't forget, you can read all the latest headlines in today's paper and on the website, and you can read Gordon on Sunday as well in the Sunday Mail. But from ourselves here at Central Quay, thanks very much for joining us.